Hello and welcome back to the Ascent cycling podcast for today's daily recap of stage 14 of the Tour de France between Carcassonne and Quillan. 183 kilometers awaited the riders this morning as they head for a hilly stage with a lot of promises, and that took its time to unfold because until the Col du Bac, which appeared 50k after the start, it was a real struggle to manage to enter the breakaway. We had a lot. And I do mean a lot of attacks, a lot of riders trying to make the gap. UAE paced quite hard throughout the stage. It led to some riders like Nasser Boigny, like Bauke Mollema, to be already out of the peloton very early on. But we did manage to get a breakaway after the Col du Bac, a breakaway that would go on to win. A breakaway with the likes of Bauke Mollema, of Patrick Conrad, of Guillaume Martin, of Pierre Roland, Esteban Chavez, and a lot of other riders, 13 or 14 riders to be exact. And within those riders was also Michael Woods, the Canadian, who would fight for the current points. A nice recovery for Michael Woods, who was the hopes, who represented the hopes, of ISN in this Tour de France, but sadly, said goodbye to those hopes in the first 3 days following the incident that we all knew happened in Brittany. And with that, Michael Woods decided to switch his focus around and go for the KOM jersey that was worn by Nairo Quintana this morning. But tonight, it is Michael Woods in Polka Dot, 54 points for the Canadian ahead of the 50 of Nairo Quintana. Werpels, who used to be in the Polka jersey a couple of days ago, decided to also go in the breakaway, and the two of them, Michael Woods and Werpels, did fight over most of the points in the Col de Montségur, the Col de la Croix des Morts, Côte de Galinag, and then as we approached the final climb, where everything should have exploded, well, we had Bauke Mollema go on a little attack, and there is a saying with Bauke Mollema: if you let him have 10-15 seconds, you will not see him ever again. And that's what happened, because Bauke Mollema got his 17th professional win, I believe, and his second win on the Tour de France after his win in 2017. Bauke Mollema gets Trek Segafredo yet another win on the Tour de France for the first time since 2018, and John Degenkolb, I believe, on the Roubaix stage, if my memory is correct. But it was the strongest, an unbelievable display by Bauke Mollema. We saw Trek going in a lot of attacks, a lot of breakaways early on in this Tour de France. Obviously, they came in without a real GC hope. But you had Kenny Elissonde on the breakaway yesterday or 2 days ago. You had Bauke Mollema and Kenny Elissonde on that Mont Ventoux stage, and Bauke was actually very sad that he could not bring the win home on the Mont Ventoux. So here he is, getting the win in Quillan. And yeah, he was by far the strongest. However, behind we did have some fights, and I mean, logically so, because the peloton ended up being 7 minutes behind, and within that breakaway was Guillaume Martin from Cofidis, the Frenchman, who had a strong Tour de France last year. This year was slightly below what we had expected from him. But because of today's stage, kind of similar to what Ben O'Connor had done a couple of days ago, well, he moves into P2 of the GC. Thanks to this stage, I believe he's lost 1.5 minutes on Bauke Mollema, therefore wins about 4:30, 5:30 on the peloton. And yeah, he moves into P2. He's now 4 minutes behind Tadej Pogačar and 1 minute and 18 seconds ahead of Rigo Uran, who drops to P3. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting because Guillaume Martin is a strong mountain, he's a strong rider in the mountains, for sure. I think he's lost a lot of energy today, and tomorrow's stage, as we'll get on a bit further, is a tough one, but also there is a time trial, and Guillaume Martin and time trials are two things that do not go together. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. I would love for him to maintain a podium. I'm gonna be realistic. I don't see it happening. I think even if he enters the time trial in P2, there's a solid chance that he's leaving the top 6, top 7. Especially knowing that most of the riders in the top 10 are able to time trial. So we'll see how that goes for the Frenchman, but at least he's finally in P2. He's had a tough Tour de France as of yet, but he's finally making his way back into the form, not with the idea we expected, but that we knew he was capable of. And actually listening to his interview at the end, he said that he's going to defend his position as much as he can, but he knows he's lost a lot of energy. And his DS, Cédric Vasseur, Someone who always says weird statements. Like he's got a tendency to say weird things, and I would like to believe that he carried on saying weird things because he said, and I quote, "We're going to defend P2, but at the same time we won't. The aim has been and will still be a Tour de France stage win this year. However, it is very rare to be in a position to fight for the GC, so we'll also try and help Guillaume Martin, maybe even improve his position." So Cedric Vasseur thinks that there is a chance that Tadej Pogacar drops 4 minutes. I mean, fair play. I don't see it happening. But why not? But if it were to happen, it could happen tomorrow. Because tomorrow we have a very, very interesting stage. Between Serret and Andorre-la-Vieille, we are heading into Andorra for the first time on the Tour de France. I believe it's the only country that the Tour de France will cross this year. Except from France, obviously, because it's the Tour de France. But 191 kilometers. I think the last time the Tour de France went to Andorra, it was 2016, I think. Tom Dumoulin winning. But the last time we had a finish in Andorra-la-Vieille, Desqualo has won the stage ahead of David de la Cruz and Chris Froome. That was on the Vuelta in 2017. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting stage because there isn't any flat portion throughout the 191 kilometers. You start with a long false flat for about 18 kilometers, and then a downhill, and then basically from the great town of Boulterner, which I've never heard of, which is kilometer 35, to, well, Font-Romeu, kilometer 95, you're climbing. First, you'll climb the Montée de Saint-Louis, a first cut, 8 kilometers, an average of 5.7, then slightly downhill, and you head for the main mountains, starting with the Col de Puymoren's 5.8k, 4.6%, then the Port d'Envalira, Souvenir Henri Desgranges, heading at 2,400 meters, the highest point on this Tour de France, 10 kilometers at an average of nearly 6%, and then a long downhill towards Encamp. And after that, starting the Col de Béchalis, 6.2k, 8.6 average gradient for a first cut, with bonus seconds at the front or at the summit, and then whoever crosses it in first place most likely has a chance at winning because we'll have a long downhill of 14 kilometers. So it's going to be a very fast-paced stage. I do believe that the breakaway will take the win tomorrow. Now, I think we'll see, as I said, a breakaway. A few riders, I think we're going to have like a solid 20 group, a 20-man group at the front. Every team is going to try and have someone except probably UAE. I could see Ineos trying to send someone. I think, if we're being honest, I think Ineos has realized that their tactic of pacing to try and destroy Tadej Pogacar and then attacking with Carapaz has not worked. They've tried it twice. It didn't work. I know in France we said that never two without a third, or jamais 203, and then the third is always the good one. I don't think that really applies when you have Tadej Pogacar facing you. I think you can try 17 times, and I think for 17 times, it won't work. Important to mention, the weather is going to be good tomorrow. So potentially Tadej will struggle a bit more, just like he did on the Ventoux. But I would expect to see Ineos throwing someone in the breakaway. They're also one of the teams that haven't lost that many riders. They've only lost Luke Rowe, who was the team captain or the road captain. But on a stage like this, Luke Rowe probably wouldn't have had that much of an impact should Ineos be in the break. But yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of riders in the break. I think Nairo Quintana is going to be in the breakaway as well to try and reclaim that polka dot jersey of his and try to go for the intermediate sprint, as, I mean, narrow for green is still a thing. But yeah, we're going to move on to the prediction part of today's show. Still 3-3. Joe had gone for Omar Fraile. Omar Fraile was in the breakaway. I did get some... I was slightly scared, but he did not win. Neither did Matej Mohoric, which was my pick. I was actually very much far off for my predictions today. Alright, so it took me a few minutes to find the predictions I wanted. And as Joe, who's still unavailable, as you could have heard during this podcast, what his predictions were, it turns out we have the same winner, which is quite odd, but we are both backing Ion Izagirre for the win tomorrow. I think Astana needs a win, alright? I think Astana needs a win, and it's a parkour that suits him. We're going to Andorra. Ion Izagirre likes Andorra, at least I think he does. I mean, he's from the Basque Country. It's not too far. I'm trying to like find a link. But yeah, he's had quite a tough tour until that stage in the Gobernant where he finished second. He got close to the win, and I think that the 32-year-old is gonna try to grab the win. However, we do have a different podium as Joe backs Ruben Guerrero for P2 and Esteban Chavez for P3. Chavez, who was in today's breakaway already, and Guerrero, who's I believe at the edge of the top 20. When it comes to my podium, I'm a bit more offensive. P2, I'll have Pello Bilbao for Bayern victorious, and I'm actually imagining a scenario where you've got Bilbao and Izaguirre up front, Izaguirre helping Pello Bilbao gain time for the GC to try and put Pello back into the top 10, and by doing so, Pello giving the win, to Ion Izaguirre. And in P3, as I said, I do think Ineos are going to move. So in P3, I'm gonna have Richie Porte. I think it's either him or Kwiatkowski, but I think I'll back Richie Porte for P3. Those are our predictions for tomorrow's stage between Sérène and Andorre-la-Vieille. I can't exactly wait for it because I know it's going to be a mental stage. It's going to be a huge stage. You need to be there from kilometer 0, which I've not done today because I slept. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed today's prediction and today's daily recap of the Tour de France. If you did, then please do leave a like down below. If you're new to this channel and want to see more of our content in the coming days, then make sure to subscribe as well. If you're listening over on your favorite streaming platforms, then do make sure to hit the follow button, as we will be there day in, day out for this Tour de France, and we may have a surprise when it comes to the rest day. I can't exactly tell you more because nothing has been guaranteed yet. But yeah, I hope, as I said, you've enjoyed the podcast. Today was Bauke's day. Well, tomorrow it will be Eon's. Have an amazing day, guys.